Okay guys, I've got my screen recording. I'm gonna try and get through some parts of the Power Commander software and the Power Commander 5 and the auto tune and the Pod 300. A lot of people have asked about it, and I honestly don't have time to talk to everyone. And sorry if I haven't got back to you with messages or phone calls or whatever, but anyway, hopefully these videos will help you. So let's get to it. So if you get the Power Commander 5, you get it hooked up to your Raptor, and this doesn't matter if it's a PC5, a PC5 with ignition, or a PC5 PTI. Just that includes a pressure reference sensor. You're going to, depending on what you're doing, you're going to go to Dynojet's website and you're going to download a map that's as close to your bike as possible, what's done to your bike. And really they just have pipes and filters and things like that. But even if you're a 780 or the bike behind me is an 860 turbo, I do it the same way. So I'm gonna just plug in my Power Commander to my laptop, and the bike is off. So it says one device connected, map received successfully. So I'm going to open up a stock map just to start with here. That's not stock. Okay, so now we've got a stock 09 Raptor we're going to start with. So you have your fuel and ignition tables. You have from negative 100 to positive 200 fuel percentage. When it's negative, you're still adding fuel. That's just a percentage of what fuel you're adding compared to the negative 100 to 200% graph chart, whatever you want to call it. So you have your RPMs here, and you are referencing them against throttle position in this case. So this would be like a naturally aspirated map. I'm just going to move this over. Now the bike behind me has an auto tune hooked up to it and a Pod 300, which is really just a gauge to show you everything going on with your motor. You can data log with it as well. I will show you that later on. But so if I wanted to start tuning this, I would first, if I did not have an auto tune and a Pod 300, in my opinion, I would take this to a professional tuner. And even if you do have all this, regardless of this video or how good the software is, I would still take this to a professional tuner, get it on the dyno, just get it done right, save that map that you know is done right, and then if you really think you need to play with it more, which 99% of you don't, it's something else that is wrong. Just then you at least have a backup map, you know, that was dyno tuned professionally. But that being said, I tune most all my bikes just on the hill. And then on this one, again, this is the PTI, this is ignition, so you know, at 100% throttle on your naturally aspirated builds, a lot of you will be, you know, throwing some timing at it. That would be advancing the stock map 4 degrees forward if you added 4 in any of these tables. If I did -4, that would be retarding the timing 4 degrees from the stock map. I know there's a stock map diagram online. If you need it, message me, I can send it to you, but it's there. So timing is important in your tune. You can hurt your motor or you can make a lot of power with timing. So I'm going to now come in and show you some features. So calibrate throttle position sensor. This has messed me up before. If your throttle position sensor is not calibrated, it's not going to work. To calibrate it, hit reset, and then I'm going to just push my throttle, my thumb throttle, all the way forward to full throttle. And you've got to turn the key on for this. I forgot to tell you that. But so reset. Now the throttle position sensor is sitting at 0.615 volts at 0 throttle. Now when I push it full throttle, I do it a couple times, but you can see my maximum is about 3.8 and 0.6 for the low. So now I click OK. So now over here it knows when I'm at 0 to 100 throttle percent. I know this is stupid, it's basic, but a lot of people screw things up by not doing this. So your speed input, I'm not going to mess with that because we really don't need to do that with these. Gear position, same, we really don't need to do that. Engine temperature input. This is one that you can tap into a cable over by your thermostat, or just into a wire by your thermostat, and you can actually have the engine temperature displayed right there. Pressure input, we will get into that. That's a separate video for the turbos. Infield fuel adjustments. You can change this on your Pod 300 or right here if you don't have one. I don't even mess with this. And that is just what you can configure your RPMs, what is considered low, what is considered medium, what is considered high RPM where it starts, and then you can say, okay, at anything above 5,500 RPMs, I want it to be able to take away or add so much percentage of fuel. But like I said, I don't touch these. Let's see if I can get that back. Close enough. So we're going to go to feature, enables, and input selections. Okay, so let's say all these are off here. Speed limiter. You really don't need to be using this. I won't even go over that actually. Launch control. There's on the Power Commander 5, there's ports on the top of it to insert wires. If you look at your instructions, there's input 1 and another input 1, and then there's 2 other holes that are input 2 and input 2. And you'll use those considering on which inputs you use. So for the launch control, you can actually tap into your stock clutch switch, which if you have a stock clutch, go look at it. When you pull it in, there's some wires going to it, and it lets you know when you have the clutch in, lets the stock computer know that. Well, on a lot of the drag bikes, we pull those off, and I actually just use a button on my handlebars for my thumb to hold it down if I use launch control. So to configure this, if you're using a stock clutch, you can use this, use timer to arm. So if you hold the clutch in for 5 seconds, it will arm. You could set this at, say, 6,000 RPM, and then once it arms itself, it will stay armed until you let the clutch out and releases that clutch switch. Now, when you're full throttle and this is engaged, you will not be allowed to go over 6,000 RPM. So it's like little launch control. Now, if you run it to a button, you really don't need this, because it's just when you're holding the button, you're going to be limited to 6,000 RPM. And then when you let go, it'll go right back to the rev limiter. And then you need to make sure you know if your switch is opened or closed. It's very simple. Just Google it. The auto tune, if you just want it on all the time, right there, or you can run it to a switch so you can turn it on and off. So configure, you can have it set up so the bike needs to run so long before it turns on. The bike needs to hit a certain temperature before it comes on. And then these are enrichments and enleanments. So what this says is it's going to allow the auto tune to add 20% fuel or take away 20% fuel while you are out riding your bike. I'll talk about that later. I'll make a separate auto tune video. Again, auto tune if you want to put it to a switch. Rev extend, you can configure. I'm not sure what RPM you're allowed to go up to. I leave mine stock. Startup fuel, if you want to add so much fuel for so much time or tell your engine's at a certain temperature, you can do that in this table. Your Excel pump, I'm not going to get into this. If you're changing this, you're gonna be screwing up your tune a little if you don't understand it. I wouldn't even screw with this. If you take your bike to get dynoed and they know what they're doing, they can screw with it. But other than that, leave it alone. Your quick shifter, I can go over another video with this. I've ran the quick shifter and it's got a lot of negative reviews, but it's also got a lot of positive too. But it's all in the setup. It is difficult to set up. It's very touchy. I mean, it is very touchy, but I'll go over that in another video. It's very cool. With your standard transmissions on the Raptors, you pull in the clutch, you shift, and let the clutch back out, very fast. But what the quick shifter does is it allows you to stay full throttle. You don't even need to pull in your clutch, and you can upshift. So it essentially turns your standard transmission into an override clutch, but you can still go dune ride. It does this by killing the motor for, a split second. You can choose if it's going to kill the fuel, the ignition, or the fuel only. I just do both. And then, well, I'll do the video later if we want. And then the map switch, this allows you to go from, say you have a tune on 110 octane, and then you have another tune for C16. Well, if you have those two tunes, you can load them both on here and cycle between the maps, depending on which fuel or tune you're using. So you can essentially have two maps loaded on here at the same time and just switch between them. So that's the features. Map tools, pressure tables, we'll get into that later with the turbo stuff. Auto tune table, same thing. Environment options, you shouldn't have to do any of this, but I like to make sure this is on create backup map file upon device connection. it always saves a backup map when you plug the power commander in. So in case you screw something up, you can always have that backup map. This is nice, this table cell tracer. It shows a little yellow box here while the bike's running, so you can see, right where your fuel is being adjusted and where your throttle's at, instead of watching it over here on the right side in the table. But you really don't need to mess with that stuff either. Everything else is self-explanatory. You shouldn't have to do any of this stuff. So that being said, let's see, get map. If my bike's plugged in, don't worry about all this weird crap I've got on here. And then when I do get table, that is for the auto tune, but we'll get into that again later. Okay, so that is the PC5. I think I'll do a auto tune video next. I'm gonna try and hurry and knock these out so I can get them to you tonight. I'm trying to think if I missed anything else. Well, if I did, I'll try and get them in the next video. Okay.